Warmest greetings to all in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Now, what makes you happy in life? What thrills your heart? Not just happy, what makes you doubly happy? Well, young ones, teens, what makes you doubly happy? A double scoop of your favorite ice cream? Whenever we see that, wow, double scoop of my favorite ice cream, you smiling from end to end of your face. So happy, so joyful. For the adults, is it a double-digit pay increment? Wow, that is what makes you doubly joyful. For students, is it a double degree or double honors? Well, for individuals, is it double holidays? Can go for holidays and then another holiday. Now, what makes us doubly happy? Now, turn to Ephesians chapter 1, verse 18. Now, the Apostle Paul was doubly joyful about something. Look at verse 18. Now he says, "What then? Notwithstanding every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is preached. And I therein do rejoice," one, "and will rejoice," double. Double happiness of the Apostle Paul. Double rejoicing. I do rejoice and will rejoice. Now, what is it that made the Apostle Paul doubly rejoicing? Now, what is rejoicing, first and foremost? Now, rejoicing means being exceedingly glad. Not just glad, but there is an immense, overflowing, exceeding gladness, right? So like some of those examples you see, especially the child, double ice cream cone. And then you see them, wow, literally hopping around until they see it drop on the floor, then the joy is gone. Right? So you see that exceeding gladness. Now it can also mean feeling very good, feeling very well, feeling very satisfied, very contented, very, very pleased. All right? So Paul says, I am so pleased. I am exceedingly glad. I am very satisfied. About what? About what? Not those things that we mentioned. Now he says, Christ is preached. Christ is preached. When Christ is preached, it gives him double joy. Double joy. Now, what is Christ is preached? So before we even learn, because Paul is going to talk about two groups of people, what makes one group satisfied? Very satisfied. And there's another group of Christians that makes him very joyful. They are satisfied. They are glad about something else. There are two groups that we are going to learn, and we have to ask ourselves, which group are we in? Which group are we in? That will make us doubly joyful. That will make us happy. Now, but here, you may say, well, if Christ is preached, then the Apostle Paul doubly rejoices. Then you say, well, I'm not the preacher. I'm not asked to preach also. So I guess this message is not for me because I don't stand somewhere and preach Christ. Now, what's the meaning of Christ is preached? Now, Christ is preached, what it means and what it does not mean. All right? Now, first and foremost, before we know which group we are in, we have to know what is the meaning of Christ is preached. Now, Christ is preached means the name of Christ is mentioned, is made known, is spoken about. Christ is preached. Don't just keep thinking. Christ is preached means the gospel of salvation from hell to heaven. You see, every time we read the Bible, that is our problem sometimes. Christ is preached. Oh, I'm not a preacher of the gospel, so nothing to do with me. Now, Christ is preached simply means Christ is promoted. When you preach Christ, let me ask you, when you preach Christ, when the pastor, when the preacher preaches Christ, what is the purpose? It is simply to mention his name. That's all? Of course not. The reason why Christ is mentioned, is promoted, is made known, is so that people will know him, will be drawn to him, would love him, would worship him, would obey him, would serve him. That is why Christ is preached at all. Christ is preached not just to increase knowledge of who he is and that's it. The increasing of knowledge of mentioning Christ is to draw people to love, serve, obey, worship, be devoted to him and live for him. Now that is the meaning of Christ is preached. So the Apostle Paul is saying, as long as Christ is lifted up, as long as people come to know him, and because the more they know him, his beauty, his character, his glory, they will say, why do I want to serve the world? I want to live for this Christ. And the more Christ is preached, means Christ is preached, means you want Christ, you want to know what Christ says. When a person says, I preach Christ, means I'm telling you what Christ says. The more you know of what Christ says, then the more you say, I want to obey that. I want to obey him. So preaching Christ is for that purpose. In other words, no one can say that I don't preach Christ. Because do you remember in verse 14? Look at verse 14. Many of the brethren in the Lord, waxing confident by my bonds, are much more bold to speak the word without fear. Speak the word. He did not say preach here. He used the word preach as speak the word. What is speak the word? Speak about what is in the Bible. It is every believer's duty. We studied this morning at BBK, right? We are witnesses. It's every believer's duty to speak about Christ, to make people know him, to draw people to him, to make people love him. So it's every believer's role. So when we hear Christ is preached, that is what it means. Every one of us. In fact, this word in verse 18, preach, all right, is a different word, preach, found earlier on in verse 15. Different words. Now in verse 18, preach Christ, preached. Yes, it can mean preaching like that. It can mean simply speaking, sharing, making known to others. That is all. So when you encourage another Christian with the word of God, you are preaching Christ. When you serve God, you are preaching Christ. Because what you're doing is so that others can come to know God. I want to emphasize this clearly. It is not just about speaking, it's proclaiming by your actions, doing things that will promote Christ. That is the witnessing life. So it's not that I got no chance to share the gospel, I got no chance to encourage another person. I'm not appointed to be Sunday school teacher or facilitator. No, it's actually everything in your life. Whatever you do to promote Christ is preaching Christ. All right? So even at work, you living a godly life, you are preaching Christ. Of course, you must share the actual gospel to them. But how you live at work, in school, you are preaching Christ. You are promoting who Christ is by the things you do. You try and plan to bring someone to church. You are preaching Christ. You are promoting Christ. All right, so it is not just to preachers, pastors, full-time workers, not to just session members or BOE. It is every lay person that is supposed to preach Christ. So when Paul says, no, as long as Christ is preached, means as long as people promote Christ, that is my double happiness. That is my double happiness. Means you're sitting there, you must know. What I'm going to learn next is about me preaching Christ. Which group of people will I fall into as people that will be very happy? Now, then the second thing about preaching Christ, before we even launch into those lessons, is this. What it is not. What it is not. Because look at verse 18. What then, notwithstanding every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is preached. Now, you may wonder, is Paul saying that, in every way, as long as Christ is mentioned, Christ is talked about, Christ in church is sung about, then Paul rejoiced. Furthermore, he says, whether in pretense or in truth. You mean even people who do it wrongly? Paul also doubly rejoiced. Because he mentioned, right, in verse 15, preach Christ in envy, in strife. Verse 16, preach Christ in contention, not sincerely. Verse 18, preach in pretense. All those, Paul is advocating that I don't care about whatever your motive are, I will rejoice. Is Paul saying that? Now, number one, Christ is preached, is mentioned repeatedly. I want you to see in verse 15. Christ is preached. Verse 16, preach Christ. Verse 18, Christ is preached. Now, he used very precise words. He did not simply say that, any Christ. But he's very saying Christ is preached. So it is not any Christ, any gospel. Because he wrote to the Galatians, he warned them about false teachers. He warned them about false teachings. He warned them about the false gospel, another gospel. So don't think that Paul is saying, charismatics are fine too, Roman Catholics are fine too. They preach another Christ in the health and wealth gospel. As long as there is a Christ mentioned, I rejoice, doubly rejoice. No, he said Christ is preached. Very specifically, not another Christ, not another gospel. Be very aware of that. Because some will quote this and say, Paul already said, as long as Christ is preached, we should rejoice. Why do you criticize the charismatics for speaking in tongues, for the health and wealth gospel? Why do you criticize the Roman Catholics? They talk about Christ, you know. They're better than us. They always hold a cross with Christ. They uplift Christ, right? They have Christ hanging everywhere in the church. Are we to doubly rejoice? No, Paul is not saying that. He's not talking about another Christ. Is Paul saying that as long as the name of Christ is mentioned, he's happy? No, he's saying very specifically, the true Christ. He repeatedly, at every phase, now even they do it for wrong motives, but it must be the true doctrines, the true Christ. Now actually I want to say one thing here. This verse is sometimes quoted about BPCWA. We split many times. All right? We split many times, you know. And we are thankful that God has kept us in the last more than 10 years. All right? No split. But in all the initial split, we studied our church history. Just a few years only split. A few years after that split. A few years after that split. Constantly splitting in a short span of time. And then some would say, well, it is a blessing. You see, because of one church, BPCWA planted in Perth, many churches came up. Many other BP churches come up. Well, we should rejoice as long as Christ is preached. Are we right to believe that, to say that? I absolutely don't think so. Christ is preached, as I mentioned, means what Christ says is also made known. I preach Christ means I want to tell you what Christ says. Now, out of all these churches that split, only one stood for the BP faith. Or rather, I'll say stood for the VPP doctrine, that God preserved a perfect Bible for us. We know all the words, and it is perfect without mistakes. Nothing is lost at all. We know the exact words. In the original Hebrew and Greek, we have it. We know it. Only one church maintained that doctrine besides us. The rest are all against it. Can we say that it's a blessing and we should doubly rejoice? I don't think so. If the people did not stir the problem and this church just will not spawn up and we fix the problem, fix the people, there will be a lot of people that will not be misled and misguided by the Christ that says another thing. The Christ that says, well, you will never know the words. It's not perfect. It's another Christ speaking, not the Christ that we know in the scriptures. So many families are destroyed. So many young people now, they believe in that. The Bible can never be perfect. That is why we should use any version, even those versions that are corrupt, because we can't be perfect. Can we say that Christ is preached? I don't think so at all, because Christ is not preached there. It's another Christ who says the Bible has errors. Now, so let us be clear what Christ is preached means. In fact, now launching into the message, in fact, I would say this is the most dangerous and difficult situation to discern. Because, you see, Paul kept saying, these people did preach Christ. He did not argue. Means their doctrines, they did not misrepresent Christ in what Christ says. Christ was faithfully preached. Now, when Christ is not faithfully preached, easy to identify, right? Easy to identify. But Christ is preached, but for different motives. That can easily exist in you, in this church. That is where the difficulty, the danger lies. So you see, Paul was not promoting the wrong attitudes. He was promoting the gospel. As long as the gospel is preached, I doubly rejoice. He's not promoting the wrong behaviors. He is rejoicing in the outcome that the true Christ, the true gospel, the true teachings, the faithful teachings are pushed out into society. He rejoiced in that outcome. But he pointed out with different words the wrong attitude. So please don't think that as long as I'm doing things for God, I am sharing the gospel, I am encouraging others, then God rejoices. Paul wrote about people who serve with the wrong motives. He said, all your works are wood, hay, and stubble, they will all be burnt up. Paul did not rejoice in it. He said, it will be all burnt up. Come on. Serve with the right motives. You see, Paul here is in prison. To him, he cannot be the one going out to ensure that the true gospel, the true Christ, the true teachings of Christ is forwarded. To him, I'm in prison, I can't do that. But these people, they are promoting it. I'm happy. I'm glad. So he was rejoicing in that outcome, not the people and their attitude. All right, be clear about that. Otherwise, you take this for yourself and say, well, as long as, I encourage someone benefits, someone know the truth. That's why I say it's dangerous. As long as someone know the truth, the church should rejoice. No. There were things that Paul addressed, two groups, and we have to search our hearts. Which group are we in? What makes us doubly happy? Because the wrong kind of things can also make us very happy. All right, so with that clarification now, let's look at the two groups. Now, one group, look at verse 15. Some indeed preach Christ. Now, he said indeed, they did preach Christ, all right? So settle that in your heart. They did preach Christ. But he gave a set of attitude. 1, envy. 2, strife. 3. Now, so this is a bad group, right? Verse 16, contention. 4, right? Then, 3, contention. And then, supposing to add to my affliction. That's one group. There is another group that he mentions in verse 15. And some also of goodwill. So some goodwill. All right? And then in verse 17, again, this good group, but the other of love. Of love. Knowing that I'm set for the defense of the gospel. So some of goodwill and love, knowing that Paul was set for the defense of the gospel. So 2 groups. Now I'm sure that many of you, by and large, do not preach the wrong Christ, share the wrong Christ, give unbiblical advice, because I think by and large most of you have learned God's word and know it well enough to discern what to say, what not to say, what is right, what is wrong. So that's why we have to be even more careful. Now look at verse 15. For the group that has the wrong motives, all right, that has the wrong motives. Now he says they did all these things, all right, they did all these things in verse 16, supposing to add affliction to my bonds. What does he mean? Supposing to add afflictions to my bonds. You see, they felt that if they did some things, Paul, although they preached the gospel, the truth, add to the afflictions of Paul means, in his bonds means, it will be less likely for the Apostle Paul to be able to break away from those bonds. Less likely that Apostle Paul can be released. They wanted to be the one in the forefront. Add to his affliction, make life more difficult for him. Now, when his life is very difficult, persecuted, even more severely in prison, it will look like, you see, Paul must have done something wrong. Paul must be wicked. And therefore, you should not listen to Paul anymore. And they become happy. They are supposing, means they want. That is what they want. They're doing things supposing their intention. This is what will make them satisfied. They will be satisfied as long as as long as they and not Paul is the one preaching the gospel. You see how dangerous it is? In other words, when we look through these few behaviors, all right, we have to ask ourselves, do I have that in my heart? Means I can be giving right advice, encouraging Christian, serving God to promote Christ. I may be doing all the right things even outwardly, but actually in my heart, I am happy for other reasons. What are some of these reasons? What are some of these reasons? Then we learn also the goodwill, the love also, and ask ourselves, all right? So, what is the test of our motives? What makes us happy? Now, first one, let's look at verse 15. Do we preach Christ out of envy? What is envy? You see, you may do all the right things, I remember. Do the right things. Even BCB, yesterday they came. Do the right things. Sunday school teacher, teach the right things. All right? On personal basis, encourage other people. Serve very hard in church to promote Christ. But it is out of envy. What is envy? We've learned this word. Envy is you lust after. You desire what someone else have and you do not have. That's envy. All right? Someone else have certain position, popularity in this kind of context, but you don't have it. Or some people have gains and all. You don't have it. That's envy. We have to ask ourselves, as a church, whatever we do, is it out of envy? All right, our church is preaching Christ as faithfully as we know how to. We do not shun from doctrines that Christ talk about that the world does not like to hear, or even Christians do not like to hear. Yeah, we are faithfully, indeed, preaching Christ. But what is our motive that makes us happy? We are happy now because we are the only church that deal with these things. We are happy now because we are the church. And then we look at others. Well, the other church have a lot of people, We want to have a lot of people. We have so few. We want to be very big. So we preach Christ very hard. We want to obey and serve Him very hard. But actually, at the end of the day, is to have what other people have. That is all. That is why, as a church, I resist. They say, we must set up nursing home because other church set up nursing home. We must set up childcare because other church set up kindergarten. Other church set up kindergarten. We must set up book room because other church have book room. We must, a lot of things because other church have. Is it God's will for us? Doesn't matter. Are we fit? Even when we set up these things, we do it all correctly. Doesn't matter. God says, is it out of envy? I want the attention that someone else is getting in church. That person is asked to do certain things. You see the position. You see the person is serving in this capacity. Wow, a lot of people turn to him or her for advice. I want that kind of attention. I want that kind of popularity. I also then therefore go and, do all these things, give all the right advice, but at the end it's because I want what I see the other Christian is enjoying from God in church. So you can do many things because of that. Do you do things because you long to have what others have? Now, I want to also clarify. I'm not asking you to be lazy, all right? After this, I ask you, will you serve? No. I don't want to serve because I don't want to be envious. All right? I'm very happy to be just what I am now. That's called lazy, all right? It's not called envious. It's lazy. So I'm not promoting laziness. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to serve. I just, at the bottom line is I want my own free time. That is, you're not willing to preach Christ. That's all. Now we must search our hearts. Now the next thing is this. Strife. What is strife? Now strife means struggle, right? Strife means struggle. In this context, struggling for what? Struggling to be above someone else. Now one is, I want to do something. I see people counsel people. I also want to counsel because I don't get to do that. Now, and when you are assigned something, now you have it. You're not happy enough. Someone is doing this, doing better. They're getting better reviews than me. So now I struggle. I want to climb above this person, to be better than this person. Well, I can cook. Right now, this cannot cook, right? A lot of difficulties. I can cook, but a few cooks fight with one another to struggle, to be better, to get more praise. Now, I'm very thankful in this church, by and large, we don't have that problem, all right? People are very, at least outwardly, all right? They don't cause all this problem. They don't try to be one up over another. Now, maybe you're asked to teach Sunday school or to facilitate. What do you do? Or maybe you're asked to help someone. Not an official appointment. Asked to help something in church. What is in your heart? See, now I get to do it. I want to show them that I am the best Sunday school teacher, the best facilitator, the best helper, the best person in this area of service. Now, if you want to do the best for the Lord, of course we must. But search our hearts. Is it, I am aiming that pianists play like that. I want to play better, get more attention. The teacher teaches like that. I want to think of ways to be even better than that person. It's always a comparison. Serving God is not about a comparison. See, Paul rejoiced that the truth is put forward, but he used very ugly words to describe the people's heart. Very frankly, they're pretentious. They're hypocrites. All right? So, are we only happy when now I get to do it? Now I get to be praised and be known as better than the others? And now I am happy. Supposing that now the other person is not as liked and well known and followed as me. Supposing. That's what their attitude were. They did everything right. But supposing that now they can push Paul down. That is what they want. Now, what about the next one? All right, let's look at the bad examples first, right? Verse 16. Of contention. Now, what is contention? Contention is building parties. Building parties. All right? Building people to follow you. Building groups. Now, this is the most dangerous thing in church. Like ours. Everyone teaching the right thing, everyone doing the right thing. You know it well. But you do it to bring followers after you. You see, all these are very linked to the one before this, of strife. You know, that person not so good. You know, that group is not so good. To build followers. Now, I'm very wary of this. Sometimes people say, Pastor, can we have Bible study in my house? Can we do this in my house and all that? They are spiritual activities. They are not doing something that is, and they are maybe watching church videos or FEBC videos. Nothing sinful. All the preach Christ things, in other words. The preach Christ things. But I've seen over and over again, this kind of groups eventually end up in factions, in a party spirit in the church, always. Because over time, there will be, that person does it, I also want to do it in my house. Then people say, no, my house, more cooking, more activities, more. Say, join my group, join their group, kind of thing. Factions, party spirit. Or is the activity itself not preaching Christ? No, activity is preaching Christ. But contention. So we must search our hearts very carefully in whatever we do. There were those that were doing that. And they're happy. Now, you are my followers, not the Apostle Paul. That was their intention. Supposing that now, Apostle Paul now, he's stuck there. He cannot come out. When people start to hold a lot of come to my house things, when I trace our history, it was very consistent. How all this started? When there are problems, come to my house, come eat with me, organize a lot of things in my house, always cooking for, and then very soon, they pull the people over. In fact, one person actually openly said, very frankly told me, say, Pastor, nowadays we don't have so many house gatherings and eating together. I say that's true, but now we have a lot more Bible studies. You know, that's the aim of the church. And I'm not against people, gathering to eat, but our focus is learning the word. Then this person said this, no, Pastor, I actually want to say this because, last time with all this gathering, slowly, it's because of them that problems begin to arise. Yeah, it's very fun to have a lot of these things. But Pastor, many of them organize. And then very soon, I became very stupid. I began to like the person, I voted for the person, and now I look back, I was wrong. Party spirit, all right? Is it doing the right thing? Yeah, doing all the church things in the house. We must be very careful. Very, very careful. So even if you want to help someone, counsel someone, say, well, I'm not a church leader, I don't organize these things. But even when you counsel another person, ask yourself, why am I so interested in helping this person? You may give all the right advice even, but be very, very conscious. Paul will rejoice in the outcome that is in spite of God may use. But Paul is not saying that is the way to continue to want to be helpful to others, to encourage others also. Because then what is not sincerely? The contention, numbers. Now this I have to say. When we have English and Chinese service, I repeatedly got warning from session members who were here for a long time, repeatedly got warning from lay people in the congregation. They say, Pastor, be very careful that people don't start to fight for numbers. I said, what do you mean? They say, how it used to be is people will stand outside and they say, hey, join Chinese. Hey, join English. Hey, go upstairs. Hey, go downstairs. Numbers. Contending, struggling, fighting for numbers. I say, wow. Yes, then everything that I do, I have to make sure I do it in a way that does not allow that spirit in us to rise again. It's not about numbers. It's about which congregation would serve what purpose, very clearly. Now I had one person who attended here, and then I had to talk to the person also. You know, this party spirit is so strong. I invite friends to church. I said, I'm inviting Joseph. I'm inviting friends to church. I say, very good. They have children. I say, very good. Then suddenly I see they came, but they were not in worship service. I said, where are they? And after that, I found out this person said, I said, where are your friends? I thought you invited your friends. Yeah, I'm teaching Sunday school, right? So last time Sunday school and worship service is at the same time. I teach Sunday school, right? So I asked the person to attend my Sunday school. Can you imagine that? These are called people who... Now, did a person teach the right thing? I presume so, because use the materials that we correct, use the materials that we use. Everything right, but contentious spirit. See, some of us, we have to ask ourselves, why do I do something? Is it so that I will be known? That is the next one, not sincerely. Look at the next one, not sincerely. In verse 16, not sincerely. What is not sincerely? Without pure motives. So he tried to summarize everything now. Without pure motives, that's it. Now, some of our motives are, if the person I help can be linked to my name, then I will be very diligent, very earnest, very excited, very hardworking, because it's linked to my name. Now, this, look at verse 18. It's linked to pretence. Pretence means there's a cloak, right? There's a cloak. There's a covering over you. So outwardly, people only see the cloak. Wow, the cloak is very nice, very pure, very holy, very right. The Christ preach is all correct. But pretense means a cloak. Underneath that cloak is insincere. Now, I think the biggest insincerity is always, will this thing be linked to my name? Will this be my legacy? Sometimes people start this, start that, start this, start that. Sometimes I ask, the thing is already there. Why do you want to start it? Because it's not linked to my name, right? Now it's not my ministry, right? So I got to start it. I remember having an argument, not argument, but a great disagreement with someone. I said, we don't need this. But no, I want to continue. I want to start it. I said, why? But we already have this. No, but this will be my ministry. This will be mine. I said, no, we already have. It served that purpose. Or even this you want to take away from me. I say, it's not about taking away from you. This is not anyone's ministry. It's Christ's church, Christ's work, Christ's ministry. Why must it be if it's not linked to my name? So I say, all right, so now we use this, all right? So can you serve? No, I don't do serve. If it's not linked to my name, I'm not interested to do it. So do you see the danger? We can be willing to do a lot of things for Christ. Search our hearts. Is it because it can be linked to my name? I still have people coming up to me and say this, Pastor, why don't we take loans for the church building fund from the bank? I say, why should we? Why should we take loans from the bank? Our God can provide all things, right? But this person is willing to do a lot of things. Pastor, I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do this. When it's linked to this person, people know this person came out with the money to do it. This person is the one who sponsored this thing and all that. Keep saying, this time, are we doing that? I can do it. I will pay for all. Because it's linked to the name. But will not give a single cent to building fund because building fund is anonymous, correct? We work very hard to make sure that building fund will be anonymous. To help you, not to do things with impure motives. All right? Because building fund is anonymous, right? We present it and make sure that everyone knows building fund is anonymous. We're not going to put your name somewhere. That is the wrong motive. Do you understand that many of us can be like that? We are willing to do things that even say, and those things that a person wants to do can benefit others. Yes, I agree, can benefit many people. Christ is preached, Christ is promoted, souls are benefited. Yes, it can. But are we doing things and are we only interested if it can be traced back to me? Search our hearts, right? So Paul is using all these words to say, these people, they are happy. They are happy when it's linked to their name. That is what it is. Paul says, I'm in prison. They say that, well, I cannot come out and preach, and they are the one now spreading the gospel. Paul said, it doesn't matter to me. I'm happy. It don't have to be linked to my name. Now, Paul can get very discouraged. He says, I'm the one who set up this church. Who taught you these doctrines of Christ? Me, right? And now you do all these things. And Paul said, forget it. No, Paul continued to rejoice. Now, in fact, this word rejoice, one of the key themes of the book of Philippians is rejoice. It's found, and the similar words about joy or rejoicing, is found 16 times in this epistle. 16 times. You see, Paul's great rejoicing in many things, among which is this: Christ is preached, but he is not happy that some of the Christians became like that. And he pointed out to them, you are like that. Some are like that. All right, so let us search our own hearts. Now let's learn the good things, all right? The good things. What is goodwill? Say, Lord, I want to be the one that serve out of goodwill. Verse 17, serve out of love, knowing that your gospel is being defended, all right? Now, what is goodwill? Now, goodwill means this. I have a goodwill towards you. They had a goodwill towards Paul. And Paul said they had a goodwill towards me, knowing that I am in defense of the gospel. All right? They love me, knowing that I am in defense of the gospel. Because the people knew Paul is doing God's work. And Paul's doing God's work promotes Christ. They experienced that themselves. They had goodwill towards him, meaning because of the outcome of Paul's work, they are very willing to support him, to stand with him, to help him. They had goodwill towards him. That is what it means. So, learn to serve God with goodwill. What are the examples? It means that as long as the other person is used by God, as long as the person is faithfully doing, and people are benefiting from his or her work, don't be envious. Don't try to contend. Simply help them instead. No jealousies involved. That is the best person to do it. You openly say, Pastor, please let the other person do it. This person definitely is obviously used by God. Has the right training, has the skills, and use this person. Let me step back. Again, I say, don't be lazy, all right? Don't. After this, I get a lot of emails. Pastor, I think I don't serve in this ministry. I think Moses, here I am, send Aaron, all right? No, not a false humility. Now, if someone joins your committee, how are you going to respond? I'm threatened now. This person other people may like him more than me. Goodwill means you do your best. You help the person join the committee, help the person do well to serve God. You see a new Sunday school teacher, you do your best to help this person do well. Now, one of the things that I make sure that we put in place in church as soon as I became a pastor is to remove everything that is in people's personal possession into the church, not your property, right? I'm not talking about property. What I'm saying is, if you're serving and you have all the processes and you know what to do, you have to record all the processes down and put it into the sessions, the church's drive, electronic drive. Why do I do that? Because I do not want people to serve out of pretension. The test is this. When a person says, no matter how you ask, you don't get the information. Because there are some, sadly to say, no matter how you ask, you don't get their templates. You don't get their project plan. For years, they want to keep it for themselves because when they keep it for themselves, they will be the only one who knows how to do it and do it well. And every time the person organizes the event, he or she is very well known, right? When other people organize, not like you, there are people who like that. So how to serve with goodwill? Whatever I do, I happily give it to others to do. And I hope that they can do it better than me. Serve with goodwill. So we must always be like that. It's not only about doing things rightly, doing things that promote Christ rightly, saying the things rightly, but I am very happy to help anyone to serve God better. As long as Christ is promoted, my goodwill, you are able to, let me help you. My goodwill towards you because you are able to be used by God. And I hope even better than me. Right? So that is goodwill. Goodwill. Maybe as a family, you see another family struggling. But you say, I will help this family. I will give tips and advice as a mother to help this family, this wife. I'm not trying to be only the best wife, best mother in church, best family in church. I'm not trying to get that prize, that position. I will help. I will help. As long as people want to obey God and they become better than me, I will help. Now, I'm also thankful that many in church are like that. You serve out of goodwill. Now, sometimes, I remember even when I graduated, I needed something. I sent and asked for some people in Singapore. There are those. Within a few minutes, zip up everything in a file and send it to me. They knew I'm a new minister. They knew I need help. They have all those information. They just give it to me. They won't try to say, well, I keep it to myself. But there are some. You ask, they don't reply. But when you ask, will you come to our church to do this? Yes, straight away reply. If I am the one who get credit and linked to my name and I'm the one who people praise, yes. But if I give it to you, you get the credit. It's very sad to see that, even in the ministry. Serve out of goodwill. If it helps another person promote Christ, happily do it. You see, the bottom line is this. Paul did not care to have anything credited to his name. He did not care that he did not get the credit. Because his intent for Christ to be promoted is so strong. That is all. Now, what else? Now, the next one, love. Love. What is this love? Love towards Christ. Love towards men. Just like he earlier on said, right? Now, I hope you understand the link, all right? I hope I can help you understand the link clearly. Last week we learned this, right? Last week we learned that how you view life, your view of what things happen in your life can affect your response, correct? Now, if you view things that happen in your life, even negative things, that is to promote the gospel can be furthered, which is found in verse 12, and in verse 14, so that other believers would be bolder to live for Christ. If your view of life is anything that happened in my life is to accomplish that, I'm willing to be that person, to suffer those things, so that the gospel can be furthered, so that other Christians can be bolder in obedience to Christ. I'm willing to suffer. I'm willing to give up anything. We learned that last week. Your view affects your response. Now, this week, Paul is saying, your aims will affect your response. Last week, your view will affect your response. This week is your aim will affect your response. If your aim is Christ is promoted, my love for Christ. If my aim is other believers will benefit spiritually, will grow, will love God, will obey Him better. If that is my aim, love, it will affect my response as well. Understand that. Not only your view. Last week he said, that is my view and this is my response. This week he wants to give examples of that. He wants to give examples because of my aim, my motive in life. Christ is promoted. I'm not interested in credit for myself because that is my aim. I can rejoice and I will rejoice. A very miserable Christian life is you can serve God faithfully, be in a sound church and all that, but you constantly are unhappy because I didn't get that position. I didn't get that role. Now I'll give you some example about this love. As long as God's name is promoted and others grow and can learn God's better and all that, As long as I am able to contribute to that, my name is not important. Now, sometimes when we plan for activities in church, there will be those activities that, by and large, normally people don't like to be assigned. All right? Kitchen duty, clean-up duty, correct? Everyone wants to be linked to the one who is standing to teach, standing to facilitate, standing to chair, standing to be frontline. People can link, this person, link to it, right? But there will be those that are unpleasant. Now, if you are assigned that, how would you feel? It's not just, the program is good and all that, but I want to link to be known, to be linked to be contributing something positive to it. Now, what happens if you're assigned to be, I give you a holiday Bible program, for example. You're assigned to be the one who cut fruits. Someone has to cut fruits, all right? The fruits don't cut itself. Someone to cut fruit, someone has to clean up, someone has to. How do you feel? This year is me, next year is me. How do you feel? Or as long as the program can continue, children can learn God's word, I'm involved in any way at all, I'm happy to contribute. Now that is love. Serve out of love. That makes me so happy. That makes me doubly joyful. I sit in the kitchen, then I hear, the children are learning this, and then they're responding. I see them do craft. I'm so happy, but I'm the cleaner. That's all. Right? The boys are always just the laborers, the hard laborers. That's all. Carrying tables, sit there, wait, carry tables again, sit there, wait, carry tables again. Right? That's all. But I'm so thankful. Now you think, if tables are not arranged, how can the Christ be promoted to the children? You think that the children, they study for 1.5 hours, they're tired. If they don't have some refreshment, they don't get refreshed to come back and concentrate better again. I am able to do anything. You see, when there is love, anything that is put in your hand, even if everyone else get the credit and no one knows that you did it, you are doubly joyful. That is the thing that Paul wants us to learn on earth. Don't only want to do things that you feel is directly linked to something, to your being prominent. That's all. What happens? You keep being asked to do that thing, right? Like yesterday, Busy Bee. There's so many things that were done that you don't even know. I'm sure some of you were under some tree and all that. No one knows. What about the one who cleaned the toilet and mopped the floor? No one knows. You know what is so important? To me, the floor is the most important thing. The floor is the most important thing. Before I left, I already, again, go around to make sure. Because when the place is dirty, people get distracted. I come in, if I sit down, hey, why is that patch there? I don't know what it is. Then they get distracted. They come in and see mud on the floor. They go to the toilet, so dirty. At least for me, right? So dirty. I come down, I sit down, I listen to a message, the dirty toilet just keeps coming back to my mind. All sorts of things. But as long as I can provide an environment that will help people come in with no distraction, I come in nothing. No distraction. I just sit down and then the Word of God comes to me. I worship Him. I learn. See, everything. I don't care. As long as I can contribute. I don't have to be linked to the main theme and the main praise. It doesn't matter to me. Will we serve God like that? Now, like I said earlier on, one of the challenges is this. When someone else is asked to do something and you are bypassed, and then at the end, the event became very successful, or someone was asked to counsel, help another Christian, all right? And then after that, the Christian returned to God, loved God. Would you feel, that should have been me. I could have done that. Do you feel that way? I remember one parent said something which I thought was very strange. I was asked to conduct something, a Bible study, and then I taught it. Then after that, the child felt she learned a lot and now want to obey God, and then told the father. And then the father told the child, I could have taught you that. I could have taught you that. It's very strange to me. I mean, parents should feel, as long as my child loves God more, I don't care. I don't have to be the one who takes credit for it. So you see how the heart can be. How the heart can be. If someone name get mentioned, right? Someone write a testimony of salvation. Then you read, hey, where's my name? I'm the one who led this person to Christ, you know. It didn't mention me. Then you get very frustrated. That is not serving out of love. In fact, the person mentioned someone else instead. But you're the one who did the most work, follow up, encourage. Then the person was down. You are the one who went out and all that. You did everything. And then didn't even mention my name. Now, in fact, when we read, we should say, please remove my name. I don't want any credit. It is all Christ. You don't mention my name, I'll be happier. I'll be doubly happy. Why? Because people will know it was not me. People will know it was Christ. It was Christ. I'm doubly happy now because people think it is Christ and know that it is Christ. In reality, that saved you, that worked in you, that drew you to Him, that changed you, and when you backslide, He's the one, not me. Please remove my name. I'm doubly happy when Christ is promoted. That is how we should live. That is how we should be. So Paul is saying, Paul is not promoting the evil, the wrong motives. He's saying there are these good ones. Learn from them. Learn from them. He himself was like that. Now, my last statement is, unless your aim in life, and I say it affects your response, your aim in life is simply that people know Him, know Christ more, love Him more, worship Him better, obey Him better, follow Him better. If your aim is just that, you are willing to do anything, be anywhere, not be credited for anything, and still be doubly joyful. But if you're someone who's envious, who wants position, who wants what others have that you don't have, who wants all these things, you'll be unhappy. Because sooner or later, someone else will take your place. You have a miserable life, but you may be serving perfectly. No one can fault your service in terms of preaching Christ. Which one do you want to be? Your view of life, your aim in life will affect your double happiness, double joy. Let us rise to sing the closing hymn. Is it all for Jesus? 426. 426.